Hi, I'm MARIKA. I'm an artist, photographer, and creative wildling, which means I love art. I love making art. I love making bad art and figuring out how to make it better. I just really love making art. I primarily am a dog photographer, and pretty much everything I make is inspired by dogs and nature and a few other things that we'll talk about in future videos. What I've come to understand about my work is photography is really only the beginning. About a year ago, I started experimenting with cyanotypes and very quickly fell in love with the medium. I love how wild it is. I love how it's just this really beautiful, intimate process of experimentation. And I have just been having so much fun making cyanotypes. So I take photos of dogs and turn them into cyanotypes. And very soon I have my first pop-up show. And to get ready for that, I've been trying to figure out something that I could make to give away to people who come to the event. And because I love dogs and I love books and I love making art, I decided I was gonna make bookmarks. So this is what this video is all about. I'm gonna show you how I make these. They're super fun. They're actual cyanotype prints. So we're not just making, a couple versions and then photocopying or like ordering them. We're actually printing all of them, and it's a whole process, super fun. That's what we're gonna do together, and I'm super excited. So let's go make some bookmarks. Before we get started, I actually want to give you a little bit of a backstory on the design for this bookmark. So this is my dog, Kerouac, and she passed away in 2021. She was my soul dog and my best friend and my favorite creature in all the land. I loved her so much. And when I took this portrait of her, I actually had this idea of a series of images of dogs and the things that their people love. So this is Kerouac, and then she's standing behind a stack of all of my Kurt Vonnegut books. My husband and I love Kurt Vonnegut. We have a combined collection of books. And so I took this portrait of her and these books that I love, and the project never went any further than that. Because as often happens when you are a creative wildling, the energy that it takes to come up with an idea and then test out the idea sometimes is just exhausting enough to make you not pursue it any further, or just a lot of other things come up in life. And so I never continued this project. I really thought it could have been a cool thing to invite other people to have me photograph their dogs with other things that they love. Who knows, maybe I'll do that someday. But it's turned out that this is a great image to use for my cyanotype bookmarks, because I believe that our dog stories do not end when they die. They live on through us, and there are so many amazing ways for us to keep their spirits alive. And for me, my hope with making these bookmarks is that I get to share my love for Kerouac with other people who love dogs, who love books, and who love art. I love how these have turned out. I've only made a few so far, which is why we're going to make a bunch more, and I can't wait. So let's go do it. The first thing you want to make sure you do when you're working with cyanotype is don't let any sunlight into the room you're working in. You do not want to expose your cyanotype solution to the light while you're working with it. So use your blackout curtains or work in a room that has no windows. Okay, so I pulled out some different paintbrushes to show you how fun it is to experiment. I'm working with a student grade watercolor paper. I prefer this paper because it's kind of smooth, and I just really love how my prints turn out on it. I highly recommend experimenting with a bunch of different types of paper. I still have a lot that I want to play with. Same thing goes with paintbrushes. Try out different paintbrushes. I started here with the paintbrush that has the blue handle. It's just kind of your standard like watercolor paintbrush. And then I moved on to using my foam brush. This is the brush that comes with a lot of cyanotype kits. It just seems to work the best. It really depends on what you're creating with. I like to use this for most of my work. I do like to use some other paintbrushes for texture and adding little details. But for the most part, this is going to be the best brush to use. We just finished painting the cyanotype solution onto the papers. Those have to dry, and then they actually need to sit for like 24 hours. I have painted on cyanotype papers and then printed with them like within 2 hours after they're dry, all the way up to like several months later. And that's kind of part of the experimentation that I enjoy, is to see, oh, what will this look like? What I've learned in my research and in my learning of working with cyanotypes is it is actually really a good idea to let it sit for at least 24 hours so that the cyanotype has time to just sort of settle into the fibers of the paper. So we're gonna let those papers sit for 24 hours. But I do have some papers that I painted a couple weeks ago for this project. We're gonna use those, and we're gonna have fun with it. So let's go make some bookmarks. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do before printing is we're gonna look at my little test strip. So I made this a couple of weeks ago, a few weeks ago now actually. It's basically just, exposure times for how long I exposed certain parts of this piece of paper to the UV light. This is to help me see how this, is going to look, and, I can decide where I want to start, where I, want to experiment with what the exposure is going to be like. When you're working with actual cyanotypes like this one up here, like a print, there's going to be a lot of different factors. You have to pretty much be pretty intimate with your imagery, and it just takes a lot of experimentation. But for these bookmarks, I already figured out when I printed them a couple weeks ago that I liked them at the 4-minute mark. Okay, so we're going to start at 4 minutes. We're going to pick which one we're going to print on all of these, but I want to pick one to start. They're so messy. I love it. I would not be this wild necessarily with some of my, prints that I'm showing at my pop-up in a couple weeks, but I also that's part of, that's the nature of the medium. It's wild, and I love that. I actually like this one. We're going to try this one. It's got some parts that are a little more bare than others. All right. So the next thing we're doing is we are placing the paper on this piece of foam core, and then this just foamy sheet. This is, the people use it in shipping, and I held onto it because you want to have some kind of soft material between your print and the foam core backing. And then we're going to grab the negative. We've got our negative on top of our cyanotype paper, and now we're going to place the plexiglass on top of that. You can see, there we go. There's a little bit of, paper showing through at the top of that one. I really don't mind. It's totally okay. So this is called the cyanotype sandwich. The purpose of it is you have this, you can use glass or you can use plexiglass, acrylic, but you need to have your paper and your negative sandwiched like this, and then I use clips because your negative needs to be as smushed up against the paper as possible, because the further, if there's any, space between the negative and the paper, it's gonna be out of focus. That's why you need to sandwich it. And I do not get this perfect as far as like lining up the glass and the backing when I'm really on a roll with printing. So don't worry about that. But this one's actually pretty good. Sometimes they look real wild. Okay, so this is the sandwich. You can see. This is how it's gonna end up going in. Look at these, aren't they so cute? Everything that's black, the light will not get through. Everything that is clear, the light gets through. So this is actually how these turn out. So these dark background ones are the ones that have clear because the light's going to be coming through and exposing that part of the paper. And then these ones with the white background have black all throughout because it's blocking the light. You really have to think about that when you're creating a design like this, because although I did the negative in Photoshop of the image, in Canva I created the rest of the design. And so I had to, make sure that I was thinking about what parts I wanted to be blue and what parts I wanted to be the paper color. So next step is we're going to actually put this in the cyanotype exposure box, which I will show you what that is in just a second. Here is my cyanotype exposure box. It is decorated with a bunch of cyanotypes. And right here is where the print in the cyanotype sandwich goes in, and then it's under these two UV lamps, and it's there for as long as it needs to be. So yeah, there it is. Okay. We are going to take this sandwich apart. You can see what the exposed print looks like. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to rinse it off. We're going to do a couple baths of water, and everything that was not exposed will be rinsed off of this paper. And then the parts that were exposed will become this beautiful blue. Super fun. Okay, let's go rinse. I have just printed 6 sheets of the bookmarks, and I'm gonna take them downstairs to my washing station, which is actually just my downstairs bathroom, and I'm gonna show you how I rinse them. You're gonna get to see the magical moment when the image appears as the cyanotype solution that has not been exposed is rinsed. Okay, let's go. Yay, I just rinsed it and it looks awesome. I'm so excited. There's some like weird, wild things going on. I really like to play with this medium and just let it be as wild as possible. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm excited about with these bookmarks, is to just have fun. So we are now going to have to let this dry for a while, and once it's completely dry, I will be putting it into a book to flatten. But in the meantime, I'm going to continue printing all of the pieces of paper that we have today, and I will see you once that is all done. The prints have finished drying and they are ready to be flattened. And for these, I've actually had fun sticking them in the pages of a book and then stacking a bunch of books on top and just letting them sit for, you know, a day or longer if I feel like it. So that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna put them in my journal and I'm just gonna pick some pages. Let's see how far back. Yeah, here we go. And we're just gonna start putting them in there. Flip a few, make sure it's not crinkled or anything. Some of these I might have to go this direction. And there we go. And now we're going to stack some books on top. I kind of intentionally picked books that I thought they're books that I love, and I like the idea of kind of turning this into almost like a little altar of books that I think I just love their energy. I enjoyed reading, but also I enjoy returning to again and again. And so I'm just going to stack them up real quick. The Soul of the Camera by David Dushman. I love this book so much. Bittersweet by Susan Cain. Heart Dog Guided Journal by my friend Crystal Hayes, who's an incredible artist. Devotions, collection of Mary Oliver poetry. A Boy and His Dog at the End of the World, one of my favorite novels. And then, of course, a couple of Kurt Vonnegut books, Galapagos. And then this is my personal copy of Player Piano that my dog Cohen, when he was a puppy, he stole it and he ripped some pages. I found one more book to add to the pile. This is a mini accordion album of portraits of my dogs, and I just kind of felt like it was a great way to top off this stack of books. All right, the bookmarks are ready for us to take them out of the stack of books, and we're going to get ready to trim them. So let's see how they look. Okay, these look good. I'm so excited. I did print a bunch more, so we're gonna get those ones out in a little bit, but for now, let's start trimming these guys. Because these are printed on a piece of paper with the negative and not like this perfectly like printed out of a printer kind of situation, they're actually not consistently straight. And so I have found that I actually have to trim these by hand. I really love the handmade feel and experience of this project. So trimming each of these by hand is totally fine. And it's really just, you know, taking the trimmer and going down each line. And I'm using this little handheld blade and a standard 12-inch ruler that has this little metal guide on it, so it'll be easy to just line it up and trim. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to get this sheet done, and then we're going to move on to the next step. Okay, we have 5 bookmarks. And so I alternated the colors so that it would be easier at this step to identify the lines in between. You always got to think several steps ahead. I do say that I like to do things wild, and for the most part I do, but I do also have some strategy. When I designed these, I didn't add my website or any contact information into the design because I thought that it didn't really fit. So I've decided, after much encouragement from my sister and my mom, that I needed to create some kind of way for people to get a hold of me or to find out who made these. So I actually designed a little sticker and just printed them out, and I'm going to stick these on the backs of the bookmarks just like this, and then it'll be a really easy way for people to just scan the QR code and go to my website. So we're going to put those on. Yay. I finished trimming all the bookmarks. So many bookmarks, oh my gosh. I haven't counted yet exactly how many, but I will let you know. I have put some stickers on a few so far. I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of these before I move on to whatever I'm going to do next for getting ready for my show. So let's put some stickers on. We are done, and I'm so excited. So the final count is around 80. So cool, but I'm actually taking around 70 to the event. I'm going to keep the rest for myself, but also just to have on hand and maybe give to some friends. I don't know. I do plan to make more after this weekend event. It'll depend on how many I have left over, but also I just want to make them. I'd love to just have these in stock, and I'd love to bring them to some places around town. It actually took several days to complete this project because of having to film at the same time, and I have a lot of other projects going on to get ready for my pop-up art show, so I was not able to just get this all done in a couple days. But that's okay because I had some time. I think I would not recommend doing a project like this if you're in a super tight time crunch. I was kind of in a time crunch, you know, doing this in like less than 2 weeks before my art show. But if you have the time to really focus on it, I highly recommend trying out making some bookmarks with cyanotypes. The thing about this particular project is you do have to have a lot of patience, just especially with doing the trimming, doing, as you saw, doing the stickers. That takes patience. I love it. I don't really know that I do anything differently at this point. I think maybe just experiment even more, just play more. I had thought about maybe doing a stamp on the back instead of a sticker. I did not have enough time to order a custom stamp. I would worry a little bit about the consistency of the ink from the stamp on the back of the bookmark and whether or not the QR code would consistently show up. And the thing about with using a stamp, once you stamp it, that's it. With a sticker, it's really, if you position it wrong, I was able to actually pull them back up really gently on a couple that I kind of got on there crooked. So I might stick with the sticker. It didn't take me that long to put stickers on all of these. So when I first started it, putting the stickers on, I was kind of like, oh no, what have I done? I don't think I like this. But the thing is, I just was a little hangry. So had a snack and then continued, and it really wasn't that bad. It kind of got into a groove. So yeah. Another really fun thing is in the process of making these bookmarks, I decided that I needed to make a cat bookmark. And so I did. This one says, "Be weird, worship cats, craft magic." I've only done one sheet of these so far, and these I am giving to my sister because this is actually her cat. I'm going to surprise her, send it in the mail, but I will soon have these available. Not in time for my show, but my pop-up art show is all dogs, so the cats don't have to be in that. But I think I'm gonna make some more designs with more animals and maybe other dogs and other cats, and definitely the deer that visit me here in my backyard. So keep an eye out for that. I think one of the ways that you can be the first to know about all of these things is to join my email list, or I am launching a Patreon, and I would love to have you come join and see more behind the scenes of making stuff and maybe even learning some things, and I don't know, maybe even collaborating on some stuff. Who knows? Everything is possible. I just want to have a space to connect with people who love dogs, who love books, who love art, and just would really enjoy building community around those things. I guess I should also say that if you would like to commission custom bookmarks, or if you would like to commission a MoonDog print, book a session with me. We can make some beautiful art inspired by your SoulDog. Any of that, you can connect with me via my website. I'll link that below in the description. I would love to connect. I'd love to hear about your SoulDog, or your soul cat, or your soul horse, and see if we can make some beautiful art together. Thank you so much for hanging out with me while I made these bookmarks. I hope you had fun watching and that you learned something. Remember to read books, love dogs, and stay wild.